Hello my fellow Neonatians and welcome back to another Construct 3 tutorial. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to make fire in Construct 3. So if that sounds good to you, then let's get started. Okay, so basically right here, we just have set up a very basic black sprite, just so it's easier to see the fire. And basically what we're gonna do is we're just gonna make a very basic particle effect. And this is essentially the basis of the fire. So we will go and add in a particle effect here. And what we're basically gonna do is this doesn't have to be perfect, because the way that we're doing this is really, it doesn't matter too much what the actual original image looks like, because when it's all blended together with the hundreds of different instances of the object, it's not really gonna make a difference. It's just gonna look kind of like fire. But the biggest tip I can give you is that when you're making this, don't use full opacity, because it's gonna make a huge difference in the final product if you try to make it look more transparent in the original image. So yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna use the brush tool and I'm gonna lower the opacity down to something like 0.24. And I'm going to increase the size to, let me see, yeah, maybe a little bit bigger, go like that. And then I'm going to reduce the hardness to 0. We want to make it look a little bit softer. So now we're just going to change the color to be like a sort of vibrant orange sort of color, like that. That should be good. And then we're just going to kind of make a shape. And you can kind of play with it a little bit. But one thing I will say is you want to make the bottom a little bit... I'm gonna undo that a little bit. What you want to do is you want to make the bottom part bigger than the top part, basically, kind of like how fire actually looks. And you're gonna want to do that in the original image, because it's gonna be hard to change that through particle effect settings, basically. And then we'll add a little bit of like yellow throughout, like this, some bright spots, basically. This will help add to the realism of the fire, basically. And then some bright red spots. Make those a little bit smaller. And you can always adjust the sprite depending on if it doesn't look right or anything like that. You can always just adjust it afterwards. And if it just looks really bad, you can just redo it. We might end up having to do that, I don't know. I'm kind of just testing this to see if this is gonna work, but it should be fine. Actually, I'm just gonna undo a couple of those. Is a bit much. Let's go with something like that. Okay. So now what I'm gonna do, because this is already pretty dark, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna use basically the eraser tool. We're gonna lower the hardness quite a bit. Actually, we're gonna make it 100%, like a lot bigger, and we're gonna lower the hardness completely. Actually, we're gonna make it full 500, and we're basically going to do that. So you can see how it's pretty transparent now. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of play with the settings, and I'll take you through what I'm doing so you can see how I'm making it look a little bit more like fire. But the first thing I wanna do is I wanna see if this sprite's actually good enough to use for this effect. So I'm gonna quickly just change the angle to be 270, like that. So that's just gonna make sure it's going up like that. And then what we're gonna do is, let's preview this for a second, okay? We're gonna lower the spray cone to be 0, because we basically just want it to go straight up. We might adjust that a little bit afterwards, but we're just going to start with that. We are going to see what size we set it to. So 250. So that's fine. We can leave it at 32. It depends on the situation. You could make it so that the size is the same as the actual sprite size, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, I'll increase it a little bit. Let's do like, I don't know. Let's do 70, something like that for the size. Just so, yeah. Actually, you know what? Let's do 100. Okay, that's a bit better. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna lower the opacity to be like 60. Let's change that to 60. So that should help a little bit. We are going to change the acceleration to 0 for now. That's starting to look better. We are going to increase the rate to about 100, because that's what we kind of need for this effect to work. We're going to change the speed to 20 just to get a good idea of what it looks like. So let's do 30, and let's set the, let me see here. Let's do 100. And then what we're going to do is we're going to change the size randomizer to something a little bit like 100. So now what you see is it kind of gives it this nice movement that we want. And a lot of that has to do with the size randomizer basically. And also what this is doing is it's changing the size that it spawns as. And the reason why this is good is because it's going to add a little movement to the base sprite. If you don't have a size randomizer, it's basically going to just look like the base sprite never moves, which we don't want. So changing that size randomizer helps quite a bit with that and just makes it look a little bit more realistic. Then let's change the grow rate to something negative so that it basically tapers off as it goes up. So let's do -20. That should add like a nice tapering effect. And as you can see, it's already starting to look a lot more like fire. And we can lower that opacity to like 50. That might help. And actually what you can also do is you can erase it even more, make it even more transparent. And let's see how that looks. Okay. What I might end up doing is doing something like this. Oh, kind of shaping it a little bit so that it's a little bit less weird shaped. And then lower the hardness on that. There we go. Make those edges a little softer there. And let's see how that looks. Okay, that's better, right? So that looks pretty good to me. We can change the speed randomizer a little bit. So let's change that to 0. What you can also do, you got to be careful with this because you don't want it to be too drastic, but you can change the X randomizer. This will give a little side to side movement to the fire and potentially make it look more realistic, but let's test it. So let's do 10. Actually, that looks pretty good. 10 looks pretty nice. What we can do actually is let's increase the speed to something like 120 maybe. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna see if there's anything else I can do. One thing I can do is I could erase a little bit of this to make it a little bit sharper, something like that. Let's see if that helps. It does help a little bit. That kind of helps with the top part a little bit. And let's actually increase the grow rate to -50. Okay, that looks definitely better. That kind of just helps taper it off a lot more at the top. So that looks really good. And then let's increase the rate a little bit to 150 like that. So this looks pretty good. And one last thing we can do just to make it a little bit more realistic is we can add some smoke. So we'll do that next. So what I'll do just really quickly is I will click on this sprite and then I will clone the object type. And I'm just going to change the picture to something really simple. Smoke is a little bit easier generally, I would say. So let's just pick like a gray color like this, maybe a little darker. And let's just see how this looks. Yeah, that should work. Okay, so we'll go something like that. Don't want to overlap too much or else it's going to add too much bright spots. And we don't want this to be too wide. We want it to be kind of thin. So let me just thin that out a bit. Kind of go like that. Add some darker spots and some brighter spots. And that should be good. Let's try that. Let's preview that. Okay, that looks pretty cool. What we're going to do is we're going to lower the speed. So we'll do 50. And what we'll do is basically just increase the gravity. Because we basically want gravity to push it up, not speed to make it go up. Because it kind of changes the way it looks, essentially. Let me lower the amount. So let's change the rate to 50, make it a little less noticeable. Change the timeout to be 2, and that should help with adding that smoke effect. And because it's smoke, we might actually change the X randomizer, make it a little bit more. So let's do 20, something like that. Lower the opacity to like 20, and that looks pretty good. I might just leave it like that actually. We're gonna bring the fire on top of the smoke. So we'll just bring it up and we'll preview this. We're going to lower the opacity a little bit more to 10. We don't want it to be that obvious. Actually, you know what I might do? I'm going to increase this a little bit. I'm going to change the size to be like 150. I'm actually going to go back to the fire and I'm going to increase this X randomizer a little bit and we'll do like 20. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Maybe I could even increase it to like 30. And then I'm going to increase the growth rate to like 70. Kind of narrow it out at the top there a little bit more. Actually, maybe even narrow it down to like 100. Yep, that looks a little bit better. I might even increase the rate to 200. Let's see how that looks. It looks pretty good. Actually, let's do 180 and then increase this grow rate to like maybe 150. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the opacity maybe a little bit to 30. And then let's see how this looks. Let's bring that down to 5 on the opacity for the smoke, and let's actually bring up the opacity on the fire a little bit to 40. Let's increase the size of the fire to 120. We're gonna just adjust the location a little bit. All right, so that's how you make fire in Construct 3. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, follow the light.